She was involved in a car crash and ended up in the hospital. Suddenly, she had the idea to play a prank on her partner. "Who are you?" Noticing how Clara's face froze, she almost burst out laughing. But then Clara pointed to her closest friend, Brooke, and declared, "I am your partner's close friend. She is your girlfriend, Brooke." My face hardened into a mask. However, Brooke took a step forward. "Yes, I am your girlfriend." I forced a smile. "Then, take me home." Brooke drove me home. She claimed that she had lived there. I looked around at a place with no trace of my real existence and pretended to feel as disoriented as she was. I slept in her bed for a while. When I went out to get a glass of water, I heard voices in the living room. "Brooke, do me a favor. And pretend to be Asher's partner for a while. Don't be afraid that I might suddenly regain my memory. If he gets it back and gets mad, I'll just sugarcoat it. He loves me so much that he would never leave me. Seriously, I've been exhausted from him lately. This is the perfect excuse to finally take a break and have some fun." "So, you and Luke are already together, right? You just want to use this as an excuse to be with him. You know me too well, but I definitely love Asher more. Keep him close these days, but don't make any moves on him. Although out of all my friends, you're the only one I would trust with this, especially since you always seem to hate Asher." Anyway, my bare feet instinctively recoiled, but then I intentionally made a noise at the door and stepped into the living room. Brooke heard the sound, quickly ended his FaceTime, and stood up. "The floor is freezing. Why aren't you wearing shoes?" Brooke rushed over, took my hand, and led me to the couch. "I'm thirsty," I said, looking around. A little lost for where to find water. "I'll get it for you." Brooke went to the water cooler and got me a glass. She sat down next to me, watching me. "Are you still uncomfortable anywhere?" I drank the water and shook my head. She reached up, smoothed my messy hair, and leaned down to kiss my forehead. My eyes blinked. I had just heard Clara tell her not to touch me. Besides, I always thought Brooke hated me, but now, when her lips brushed against mine, I pulled away. She calmly caressed my face. "You don't remember, but we can take it slow. You'll get used to me again." Brooke had apparently betrayed her closest friend too. When Brooke led me to the VIP room, it was already packed. A group of socialites and wealthy young people were there. But the moment I entered, everyone fell silent. Their gazes shifted to Clara with a knowing expression. "Oh, Asher's here. Do you remember me? I'm Lucas, your college roommate." Lucas, sitting next to Clara, greeted me. Brooke led me to a seat. I looked at him and shook my head. "Sorry. No problem. Can we reintroduce ourselves?" Lucas said, casually slinging an arm over Clara's shoulder, causing her to lean intimately against him. This former college classmate, now friend, seemed to enjoy my supposed amnesia, claiming his spot next to Clara with a barely concealed smile. Clara also seemed to revel in the thrill of being so close to another man right in front of me. "Yeah, absolutely. Your two best friends' significant others are in this circle. How cool is that? We can hang out more often. Amnesia or not, nothing will change." The other friends understood the situation but remained silent and spoken, seemingly sharing a twisted amusement. They enjoyed the spectacle of someone being publicly betrayed and made an idiot of. Everyone went back to playing. Clara and Lucas shared a single pretzel stick. Their mouths were getting closer and closer. Kiss, kiss, cheers erupted from the group. In that atmosphere, Clara and Lucas immersed themselves in a deep kiss. Then, Clara leaned shyly into his embrace and Lucas, looking totally satisfied, hugged her tightly. He even threw a subtle, triumphant glance in my direction. Later, I lost a game and had to serve a penance. Kiss someone for 30 seconds. Everyone fell silent as they stared at me. They were curious as to who I would choose. I would instinctively choose Clara. Clara seemed a little tense, avoiding my gaze. She probably didn't want me to have an instinctive reaction so soon. Brooke, next to me, also seemed stiff. I smiled. "Of course, I'll choose my girlfriend," I said, turning to Brooke. "Let's go." I could clearly feel Brooke's tension easing. She stared at me intently and then leaned in. I put my arm around her waist and kissed her. Wow, another round of gasps and exclamations. These people had probably seen Clara hugging and kissing other men, but they probably never expected me to do the same with another woman. So their reactions were particularly intense, but then they fell silent. Suddenly, Brooke seemed to kiss me without reservation, searching for my lips. His tongue invaded my mouth, intertwining with mine, and the hand that was holding the back of my neck tightened as if he wanted to consume me completely. After 30 seconds, I pulled away only to see that Clara's face had turned absolutely furious. That's why everyone else had fallen silent. How ridiculous. Brooke gently wiped a wet spot from the corner of my lips. What's wrong with everyone? Wasn't it just a penance? Quote, I asked, feigning confusion at the strange environment, even with amnesia. Asher isn't shy with his girlfriend, Lucas commented, clearly mocking me for making a fool of myself due to my memory loss. Clara's expression became even more unpleasant. I went to the bathroom outside, but on the way back I heard voices coming from the stairs. Brooke, I told you not to get too affectionate with him. That wasn't right before. Clara's voice was cold. It was just a game. He has amnesia. You're suggesting that he should have chosen you, someone who is clearly with another man. That's not realistic, is it? You yourself chose me as his girlfriend now. Brooke's voice held a hint of a smile. Clara was silent for a moment. It's fine, just set some boundaries. Although I don't think you'll actually fall in love with Asher and sleep with him, try to avoid getting too intimate, okay? Otherwise it'll be awkward for you. And I wouldn't want that, right? You know me well enough too. I'll take you back to Brooke's villa as I was about to enter my room. She stopped me without saying a word. She leaned in slowly, her eyes searching mine, and kissed me softly. I hesitated for a second, as if part of me wanted to pull back, but I didn't. The kiss lingered deeply, but calmly, unhurriedly. Brooke kept her hands on my shoulders, waiting for me to decide to reciprocate. When our faces parted, she caressed me tenderly and said softly, "Today was different, wasn't it? Little by little, we can find each other again." Quote. I didn't respond, just watched her silently, not knowing if that was part of her act or if there was something more real hidden behind her words. I stared at her in a daze. Her actions seemed to completely contradict what her best friend had said. I didn't understand her. Clara and I came from very different family backgrounds and she had worked hard step by step to make me accept her. Later I met some of her friends, a group of socialites and wealthy young people, especially Brooke. Brooke hated me, she looked down on me. It was a known fact within her circle. She always treated my relationship with Clara with a certain disdain. In the past, she always tried to avoid her. But after my amnesia, when Clara forcibly paired me with Brooke, Brooke took advantage of the situation. She did it to get revenge on Clara for pairing us up. My design job was quite flexible, so I usually worked from home. Brooke called and came in. Working hard. Hey, there are fireworks today. Let's go see them. When we arrived at the lake where the fireworks were being launched, Clara and Lucas were already in the best spot watching the grand show. Lucas, with Clara leaning against him, suddenly kissed her on the cheek with his eyes full of tenderness. Clara smiled at him, gently smoothing his disheveled hair. Then she turned and saw us. Clara saw me and for a fleeting moment she tensed up and seemed taken aback, but then she pretended like nothing was wrong. Lucas saw us too. They made it. Asher, can you do me a favor and take some photos of Clara and me? Lucas called out, coming over and handing me his phone. Clara's face wavered for a second, then she looked at me. I'm so happy today. Clara prepared these fireworks just for me. I want to remember this moment forever, Lucas said, standing next to Clara and looking at her with deep affection. Clara's expression softened and she hugged him. My hand, which was holding Lucas's phone, stopped. So, today was Clara's big fireworks show for Lucas. I watched them hug each other through the lens of the phone. Lucas had his arm gently wrapped around Clara, who was snuggled up against his chest, a happy and content smile on her face. Behind them, magnificent fireworks painted the sky. A scene of pure romance. I quietly took their photos. Once on my birthday, Clara also prepared a lake full of fireworks for me. Lucas even offered to take our photos back then. He was probably feeling just as joyful and content as Lucas at that moment. Lucas even commented with a touch of melancholy, "I envy you two so much. I hope I find someone who will spoil me like that soon." Quote, I encouraged him at that moment, assuring him that he would succeed, and indeed he had now succeeded. Brooke snatched the phone from my palm. "Enough. You didn't come to be his exclusive photographer." Brooke threw the device back. Clara caught it in midair and passed it to Lucas. After the fireworks show, Lucas and I headed to the bathroom. Since it was crowded, I decided not to go in, but when I returned I caught the conversation between the two who were waiting for us on the side. Quote, "I see you and Lucas are having a great time. No, you and Asher haven't had this much fun in a long time, have you?" Brooke said. "That's true. These days Lucas and I are reliving what Asher and I experienced before. Lucas is even more affectionate than Asher and just as considerate. He brings me immense comfort and joy," Clara replied. "So why don't you keep it that way? Lucas suits your style much more. Asher, you always complained that I was so stubborn that it exasperated you, didn't you?" "No," Brooke suggested. "Brooke, Asher, and I have shared years of experiences. It's not something you just throw away." Lucas also mentioned that he's not looking for anything formal, that he's content to just enjoy our moments together. "He's such a naive charmer," Clara mused. Upon returning to the dorm, Brooke suddenly put his arms around me and kissed me. Then he stepped back a little, looking at me gravely. "Asher, you know, you're the best, Asher. You don't have to measure yourself against anyone." I looked at her as if she were replying to Clara comparing me to Lucas. How did she understand me so much? She remembered my minor habits that Clara had forgotten. What sweets did I prefer? What foods did I choose? What movies did I enjoy? She took an extra step forward. I didn't resist. She looked at me briefly, astonished. Then she took my hand and led me to her room. Brooke took my hand silently with that expression on her face that I couldn't quite interpret. She wordlessly led me down the hallway to the bedroom. The door closed with a soft click. She remained standing, scrutinizing me with those honey-colored eyes that always hid something, even in their calm. She took off her shoes without haste and settled on the edge of the mattress, crossing her legs. The light dress she wore exposed her thin but strong shoulders. Her straight brown hair fell down her back with a carefree naturalness. She wore no cosmetics. Her features were delicate, refined, and at the same time somewhat rough. Brooke was not one of those who needed to appear sweet. Quote, "Would you prefer that I sleep on the couch?" she asked finally, looking down. I shook my head slowly. I could no longer tell if it was from fatigue or from that strange peace that her closeness had generated in me since I met her, or at least since I pretended not to know her. Brooke was like a paradox, cold but careful, aloof, but always there. It didn't fit, but her presence was beginning to seem familiar. I took off my shirt. Brooke looked away. I got under the covers, leaving a reasonable space beside me. She turned off the phone. The light flicked off and she lay back facing the wall. Silence stretched like a taut cord between us. Outside, the air rocked the curtains. Minutes, perhaps hours passed in that gloom. I couldn't sleep. I could hear her breathing. It wasn't completely calm. "Why did you do it?" I asked the corporal quietly. He took a while to answer. "Because I thought you wouldn't remember anything and because Clara had asked me to. I thought it was just a favor, but it got tangled up." "It got tangled up." "Yes." She didn't say anything else. "It wasn't necessary." I caught it. I could sense it in the way she clutched the blanket. In the pause in her voice, Brooke harbored genuine emotions. Maybe she hadn't had them before, but now she did. I turned to her. "You really detested me." She turned her face. I could make out her outline in the faint light filtering in from the street. "I didn't detest you, I envied you a little. You were stable. Clara always described you as if you were ideal. I didn't believe anyone like that existed. It irritated me how she exalted you until I met you and saw that you were genuine, stubborn. Yes, but genuine." I stood watching her in the darkness. I didn't know what to make of that revelation. My pulse was pounding, not from attraction but from the knowledge that something was changing, something was breaking and something else was beginning to emerge. The next morning, Brooke was up before me. I woke to the smell of coffee. I sat up in bed, bewildered, dazed by the memory of the night. She was in the kitchen, her back turned, a makeshift ponytail, a gray t-shirt slipping off one shoulder. The doorbell rang. Brooke looked through the peephole. His face hardened. "She's Clara," he said without turning around. The door opened and there she was, Clara, tall, sophisticated, dark hair in an impeccable braid, green eyes, angular face, dressed as if she had calculated to appear casual, but clearly she wasn't. Clara never acted without purpose. "Am I bothered by something?" she asked, peering inside, assessing the space between Brooke and the breakfast table. Brooke crossed her arms. "Depends on what you're bringing to say." Clara entered as if the place belonged to her. "I need to talk to you privately." I didn't interfere. They both turned to me. "If you have something to say, go ahead. Do it in front of both of us. No more hiding. There are memories." Clara pursed her lips, then smiled in that way she used when she was trying to dominate the scene. "I just wanted to know how you were doing. And if Brooke was taking good care of you." Brooke tensed noticeably. "He takes better care of me than you did." Clara looked down in pain for a second. Then she looked at me again. "That's all. Have a good day then." Asher left without waiting for a reply. The door slammed softer than anticipated, but the atmosphere remained heavy, almost suffocating. Brooke picked up the cups and began washing them. I stepped closer. "Thank you," I said. "Why?" "For giving up acting." She looked at me with glassy eyes, but she didn't cry. "I'm exhausted from acting." I nodded, and for the first time in a long time I felt that maybe I was too. When Brooke left for work, the house fell still. The silence wasn't the same as the previous night. It had a different density now, as if something underground was breathing. I walked slowly down the hallway without any initial direction, until something caught my eye. A half-open drawer in the study. I didn't remember seeing it like this before. I opened it all the way. Inside were documents, invoices, old envelopes, and at the back a black notebook with a soft cover worn at the corners. I picked it up. It was my handwriting, my real handwriting, not the memory I pretended not to have. The stroke was firm, slanted, like the one in my design notes. I opened it in the middle. There were drawings of chairs, lamps, plans, my work, but the dates didn't match the period that Brooke and Clara supposedly said I had spent there. It was obvious, none of what I was told was chronologically viable. I looked further and then I found it. An envelope taped to a page of the notebook read in my handwriting, "Do not open unless doubt arises before memory." My heart pounded. I carefully peeled the envelope away. Inside were pictures of me with Clara, but in another apartment. An industrial loft, exposed brick, plants, my models, my real existence. And in one of the photos in the background, undeniably blurry, Lucas, sitting on the couch at home while Clara laughed beside him. This wasn't current. This happened before the incident. They were already together before then. I closed my eyes. It wasn't going to what I felt first, but a crystalline coldness. There was no mistake due to the messiness of the accident. There was planning. There was desertion prior to the crisis. I didn't lose Clara from the impact. I lost her long before. I kept looking. I found a handwritten sheet where I myself had recorded perhaps weeks before. "Brooke suspected," he declares. "He probes too much. He says Lucas isn't that friendly. He senses something." I froze. Brooke had already sensed it and still took on the role, but not to help Clara erase me, but because she was already immersed in the matter before I could stop her. I closed the notebook. Then I heard keys in the lock. Brooke returned, walked to the study, saw me with the notebook in hand, stopped. He didn't make a fuss, didn't deny it, just inhaled deeply. "Did you find it?" He didn't ask what or why I opened it. He inquired as someone who knows the damage has already been done. "How long did you know Clara was substituting for me?" I asked. Brooke leaned against the doorframe. Arms crossed, face serious, no makeup, a little pale. She looked younger without acting, maybe 26, 27 years old. Her voice had been low since before the accident. I sensed it. She didn't accept it, but she was already estranged from you and still, you played the role. "No. Initially, when they first proposed it to me, I declined." Her gaze wavered slightly, "But when they informed me that you had lost your memory, no one else would assist you. And I chose to stay close, albeit with a falsehood." The word assist hung in the air. "I didn't do it for her," she added. And there her voice cracked slightly. "I did it because I believed you didn't deserve to wake up alone." I didn't reply. I just kept scrutinizing her. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't like Clara either. Brooke had lied. Yes, but her deception came from somewhere else, not from selfishness, from something she hadn't yet named. I placed the notebook on the table between us. Then I said, "From now on, nothing is sustained by silence." Brooke nodded slowly. And in that movement I understood that what followed would no longer be pretended. The sound of a vehicle parking outside cut the tension like a scalpel. Brooke looked out the window and her expression changed. "It's clear," she said. Quote, "And she doesn't arrive alone." Through the windshield I made out the male figure driving the vehicle. Lucas and Clara appeared as a couple. As I watched Lucas get out of the car with Clara, a knot formed in my chest, like a doorway that is sealed forever. Brooke stood by the window without saying a word as I stepped back. The buzz of the doorbell was brief, but it seemed to pierce the air. "Do you want me to receive them?" Brooke asked without moving. I didn't answer. This time I wanted to meet their gazes. I headed toward the entrance. When I opened it, Lucas was the first to smile. He was tall, with a slim build, no facial hair, and had that cocky attitude of someone who usually attracts attention. He was wearing a light blue shirt with rolled-up sleeves and his usual leather-banded watch. Beside him, Clara watched me as if nothing had happened. Her lips were tinted a subtle red, sunglasses on her head, and her hair was loose and straight. "Hello, old colleague," Lucas said with that irritating closeness. "What are you looking for?" Clara was the one who answered. "We wanted to talk together. Things are getting out of hand." "Oh, of course." I looked at Pinsai. "Lucas, were you also eager to talk, or did you just come to check if you had already secured your new position?" Quote. Lucas shrugged. He wanted to make it clear that this was not orchestrated. "Everything has been strange since your mishap. Clara and I had come together before." I cut him off. I took the notebook from the office and presented it to Clara. I wrote it before the impact. I did not suffer from amnesia, I was just watching them interpret. Clara paled. The three of them were overcome with silence. "Brooke, I already sensed it." I continued. "And several of your acquaintances too, right?" Clara fell silent. Lucas took a step forward. "It was a mistake," he affirmed. "But I am not the antagonist here. I did not benefit from you." Clara chose. "And you, well, pretended not to remember." "And the others," Clara inquired, "were also involved." Brooke emerged from behind me at the end of the corridor. "Yes," Clara admitted. "Everyone knew about it. No one intervened because no one wanted to interfere. They thought you would eventually catch on or leave." Brooke frowned. "That's not accurate. Not all of us were comfortable." Clara scrutinized her with disdain. "You agreed to pretend to be his partner. Don't try to exonerate yourself now. I did it because you asked me to protect him, not to hide your parallel existence." Lucas looked from one woman to the other, then at me. "Listen, Asher, we owe you an apology, but this already happened. And if you want to continue with Brooke, go ahead. Clara will not return to you." "Do you think I long for her to return?" Clara's eyes widened in astonishment. Lucas stiffened too. "This wasn't about her," I declared. "It was about me. I was eliminated. I was impersonated, I was outright deceived, and I watched them all fall silent. Do you know what beats losing someone? Witnessing that no one acted when they misplaced you." No one replied. "I'll give you your place back, Lucas. You can keep it, but don't imagine I'm the same fool you welcomed into that farce." I closed the door without saying anything else. Brooke didn't make a sound, leaning against the wall, inhaling slowly. "So, was everyone informed?" I asked her. Not everyone, but there were tense pauses, gestures. They never verbalized it, but they understood. "And you?" I refused to accept it. I thought Clara was just disoriented, but when I noticed that you weren't responding, I realized something was wrong. And then I realized that you knew for sure. I headed to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, my hands shaking. "Did you stay close out of compassion?" I asked her. She approached slowly. "I didn't stay because I was starting to experience something unexpected." "What exactly?" "Admiration and then something else, but I still don't know if it's affection or mere remorse." I turned to her. "Do you yearn to explore it?" Brooke hesitated, but then nodded. He didn't say anything, yes. He just advanced toward me and stopped there a couple feet away, not touching me, but not backing away. And that was our first step toward something real. Darkness descended quickly, as if the day had hastened its concealment. Brooke and I didn't talk much for the rest of the afternoon. Each of us occupied our area like two parallel lines about to intersect, but uncertain whether they would collide or advance together. The summons came by text. One of Leo's group contacts, the one who always carried a glass of wine in his hand and a practiced smile, was planning an evening of entertainment and simple food. All to purify the air, he said. As if the air were purified by sips and false greetings. Brooke waved the message at me. Do you wish to attend? Yes, I answered without hesitation. This time I don't plan on staying mute. She approved. She dressed in dark jeans and a basic white blouse, leaving her hair down. I selected a black shirt and gray jacket. Nothing fancy, but not relaxed either. I looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time in conferences, I saw myself and not the role I was pretending to be. Leo's residence was bustling as usual. Soft lighting, candles on the table, ambient sounds. Clara was lounging on a sofa surrounded by her companions. Lucas was chatting with a relaxed group near the counter. When we entered, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't abrupt, but there were those brief interruptions in sentences, the camouflaged glances, the strategic silence. Leo, the organizer, approached with his glass raised. Asher, Brooke, I'm so glad you came. Quote, we couldn't leave out the show, I said. Leo laughed nervously. The game began. Naivete, challenges, questions, all of them simulated everyday life, as if the pressure didn't pulse beneath each word. Brooke stood next to me, Clara right in front. Lucas beside her, everything meticulously arranged or perhaps a staged unforeseen event. Asher, Leo announced, it's your turn. He greeted them as if it were your anniversary. I took the glass, stood up straight, and exhaled deeply. Good. He recently suffered an incident. He lost many things, or so they assumed. Everyone tensed up. He lost his faith. He lost the image he had of certain allies. He lost someone he adored, and I had the chance to observe them all individually, without veils. Clara's eyes fixed on mine, so today I greet them for the masks, for the simulated expressions, for the empty hugs, for the disloyalties disguised as support. Salute to you, those who knew and silenced, those who pretended that everything was going smoothly while you buried me with the justification that it was for my well-being. A heavy silence descended over the group, but mainly I continued. Salute to me, for not having forgotten, for having seen you perform, for having witnessed my own evanescence and for remaining here clearer than ever. Brooke scrutinized me as if he could not inhale. Quote, you never lost your memory, Lucas inquired hoarsely. No, never. Some lowered their eyes, others distanced themselves. Leo cleared his throat. Okay, it was mere entertainment. Entertainment, I repeated, looking around. So, let's propose something more captivating. I approached the table, grabbed a piece of paper, a marker, and wrote down. Who knew that Clara and Lucas got together before the mishap? I placed it in the middle. Let's proceed to choose. Anonymously. No one moved. Isn't that what you prefer? Enigmas, silent agreements, unspoken realities. Clara sat up abruptly. Enough, Asher. I observed her without raising my voice, without rancor, only with something superior. Unclear lucidity, just beginning. She recoiled. Her mask fell off. She was no longer the dominated lady manipulating the narratives. She was just a 28-year-old woman, confronted with what she had erected with falsehoods. Lucas didn't make a sound, he just raised his glass and sipped. Quote, let's go, Clara instructed. But Lucas didn't move. For the first time, he looked at her with genuine unease, as if he realized he had reached an edge. Brooke came closer to me. He brushed my arm. Let's go. You've made your point. I didn't answer him. I just started it. We left without looking back. Something different was finally noticeable in the air, wasn't it? The darkness still echoed in my ears as I left Leo's dwelling. Brooke walked beside me, silent, his hands in the pockets of his jean jacket. The cool wind whipped our faces, but the burning sensation of what had happened persisted internally. I didn't say anything. There was no need to add until I heard his voice. That was crude, excessive, wasn't it? He stopped on the sidewalk and looked at me with renewed seriousness. It was fair. No one else would verbalize it. Brooke was 27 years old. His youth was not naive. There was a maturity imposed by circumstances, as if he had been forced to grow stronger prematurely. The light from the streetlight brushed his face with delicate lines, soft shadows under his eyes and matte lips. His voice did not waver, but there was something more vulnerable in his bearing. We got into the vehicle. During the ride home, the silence was another, not annoying, but full of conflicting ideas. I drove with my eyes straight ahead while she unconsciously rotated the ring on her finger. When we arrived, Brooke was the first to speak. "What will you do now?" "I don't know," I replied, closing the door behind me. "But I need to sort out, to reclaim my existence, to start over from nothing." I observed her from what I deserved. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of water. Brooke leaned against the counter. "Clara sent me a message." "What did she say? That you embarrassed her? That you lost control?" I let out a short laugh. "And what do you think?" "I think that for the first time Clara heard something she couldn't control. You were always her superior edition of the universe. The perfect designer, the reliable companion, she kept you on display, and when you began to show real imperfections, she stopped noticing you." I remained silent. Brooke wasn't defending Clara, he was dismantling her term by term. "And you," I asked, "why did you consent to her scheme? Why did you pretend to be my partner?" She closed her eyelids for a moment, then straightened up. "Why did I undervalue you? I thought you were ordinary, that you weren't worth as much as she claimed. But when I saw how you observed others, how you listened, how you discerned when to speak and when to be silent, I realized that Clara didn't idealize you. You were simply unique. And what did that prompt you to do? To change sides?" "It didn't prompt me to regret it." We watched each other. There was a moment when I considered kissing her, but I didn't do it. Something in the expression on her face indicated that it wasn't the right time, that another conversation had to come before any further action. That one took place the following morning. Brooke remained sitting on the couch with her cell phone in her hand. The screen displayed an image. Clara and Brooke, years ago, smiling, entwined. Inseparable. I met her when I was 19. We became friends in college. We shared everything, and I never felt like I was enough. She was always the one who stood out. I was the helpful shadow, the one who fixed things. Until you came along, I settled in next to her, and that made you, what? Insecurity, jealousy, anger. She had something that felt solid, something I never achieved. So when she asked me to pretend, I thought for once I could experience what she had. Unreal though it was, Brooke turned to me. Her honey-colored eyes were misty, but she didn't shed any tears. "But I don't want to live anything unreal anymore, not with you or anyone else." I grabbed her hand. This time she didn't pull away. "Then let's not live anything unreal," I said. "Not even this." "And what does this represent?" "Whatever we decide it to be, but with one demand, without disguises. Without deception." Brooke inhaled deeply. "I agree." We remained like that, without kisses, without oaths, but closer than we had ever been. A separation that can only be bridged when everything else has been swept away. I woke the next day to find the apartment still. There was no smell of coffee, no footsteps in the kitchen, not even the soft murmur of Brooke humming some wordless tune as he organized the living room. I sat up and explored every corner. There was no note scribbled on the dining room table in his determined handwriting. "I need to think. Don't look for me. Not now." My initial reaction was instinctive. I would grab my phone, dial, but I held it in. Brooke hadn't left in anger. He had left so as not to escape. There was something audacious about this departure, something that I had to admit out of respect. The following days were leisurely. I immersed myself in my work as an industrial designer. I refolded plans that I had neglected for weeks. I retrieved messages, clients, calendars. I resumed my authentic existence, or at least fragments of it. And yet, in every place where Brooke used to be, something was lacking. Her favorite mug, still on the shelf, the pillow where she always settled, slightly sunken, her charger forgotten, silent traces of someone who had departed, leaving a part of herself behind. I needed her, but not as I had needed Clara before, as a piece that fit into my life. I needed Brooke as a voice of my own that I didn't know I had. She challenged me, asked me questions that I didn't want to answer, and now, in her absence, it was I who began to answer them. One afternoon, as I was tidying up my desk, the doorbell rang. I thought it was her. My heart skipped a beat, but it wasn't Leo. "Acer," he mumbled somewhat awkwardly, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. "We can talk." I invited her in. She perched on the edge of the sofa, swinging her legs as if she were in a hurry but didn't know where to go. "I want to apologize for everything, for not telling you anything, for laughing out loud when I shouldn't, for looking away when Clara, do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." Leo ran a hand through his light brown hair, which was as disheveled as ever. He was 29, a year older than me. He had always been the spirit of celebrations, the peacemaker, but now he seemed smaller, more human. "Clara used me to hide matters. I allowed it. I don't know if it was fear or misplaced loyalty, but I was wrong. The important thing is what you do now." Leo nodded. "Brooke came to visit me yesterday. He told me that he needed space, that he was afraid of ruining something real, that he felt responsible for you, but also that he missed you, that he would read to be apart." I stood still. "Where is he?" "In his old flat, the small one, the one above the cafeteria." "He went back there." I didn't wait. I took my jacket, the keys. Leo didn't object. Before leaving he told me something else. "If you let her go without fighting for it, you'll go to Mentoro Technical, because this time it's not Clara, it's Brooke and she's worth the effort." The journey to her building was quick. The lights of the city escorted me, the same ones we used to watch from her makeshift balcony with a glass of cheap wine and conversations that lasted hours. I took the stairs 2 at a time, knocked on the door, waited a few seconds and then I looked at her. Brooke opened it without any makeup, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She was wearing a baggy sweatshirt, the sleeves rolled down. She looked younger, this fragile and yet, more determined than ever. "Hello," she said without surprise. "Hello." We stood there face to face, without oaths, without scripts. "Did you come?" "Of course. I thought you were going to let me leave." "No, I considered doing it, but I've already lost once. I'm not going to lose you too." She lowered her eyes. For a moment, she seemed about to say something, but she just let out a nervous laugh. "I don't know if this is love, Asher, but I know that with you I don't have to pretend anything. So, let's start from there." Brooke opened the door and this time not only did she let me into the apartment, she let me into her, into who she really was, without filters, without deception. The sky was cloudy, the kind that never stops raining but doesn't let the sun in either. Sitting on a bench in the park we used to frequent, I waited for Clara. She had agreed to meet with me after several messages that she hadn't answered for days. Finally, she wrote a brief message. "Okay, but I just want to talk one more time." I saw her approaching from a distance. She had an elegant walk, a beige coat, straight dark hair falling down her back. Clara was 28, but she had always projected her age, not because of the wrinkles she didn't have, but because of that controlled way of moving, of measuring her sentences, of scrutinizing her surroundings with an almost corporate logic. She settled in next to me, without looking at me. Her perfume, the same as always, evoked scenes from other afternoons, other seasons, another being. Quote, "Thank you for coming," I said. She crossed her legs and adjusted her coat. Her nails were as impeccably manicured as ever. "I didn't know if I should, but I guess I owed you." "You don't owe me anything, Clara. I just want to understand." Clara took a deep breath. Finally, she turned her face toward me. "What do you want to know? When did it all start? When did you stop loving me?" She blinked, lowering her gaze. It wasn't a specific day, it wasn't an argument, it was an accumulation of silences, moments in which you were there, but you didn't notice me, and I didn't notice you either, to be honest. And Lucas emerged in the midst of the chaos. He was a distraction, someone who looked at me differently, as if I still had something fresh to offer. "With you, everything was routine. Those words hurt me, but they were true. You never said anything to me because you were impeccable. You are impeccable. No one wants to be the one to destroy something impeccable. Everyone would have blamed me. So I let it flow until I was exhausted. And the falsehood after the accident. Clara pursed her lips. That was the worst. I know. I got caught up in something that got out of my control. Brooke offered to help you. He said he could keep up the charade. I thought it would be a few days when you wouldn't remember, but then I saw you acting like you knew and I knew you were in on it. I watched her too. She wasn't in on it. She was waiting for someone to tell the truth, but no one did. Not me, not Brooke, not the others, because we were all too busy keeping up appearances. A silence fell between us. The city still echoed behind us, but there, on that bench, everything stood still. Lucas isn't for me, Clara said suddenly. I only found out recently. He's simple and I'm still a mess inside. And what are you to me, Clara? She looked at me with something akin to suffering. An old scar that no longer bleeds, but that hasn't healed either. Do you want us to close it? Yes, but not with a kiss or an oath. Just for that moment I nodded. It was enough. We stood there. Two young adults who were once the core of each other's worlds saying goodbye without tears. Because sometimes the most mature thing one can do is release without ruining. Clara stood up. She gently touched my hand one last time. Take care of yourself, Asher, and take care of her. Brooke is not like me. She stays. I know. When others leave, I watched her walk away down the dirt path until she disappeared into the trees. I didn't look back. Not this time. The weeks that followed felt like a profound purge, not just of the apartment, which I no longer shared with Clara, but of myself as well. Every corner that had once been adorned with photos, books, or shared gifts was now an emptiness. It didn't hurt. It was like shedding dead skin. I returned to the loft I had abandoned after the accident, my true refuge. It still smelled of old wood and dried coffee. The models of my projects lay covered in fine fabrics. It was hard to dust it all off, not because of the physical effort, but because I was afraid of confronting who I had been before everything collapsed. But I did it. Every plan, every sketch, every model. It reminded me that there was a side of me that depended on no one else. That side hadn't gone away, it was just waiting for me to reclaim it. The work came back into my life like a blast of icy air. A design gallery contacted me for a group show. They wanted original works that spoke of metamorphosis, of identity. It was as if the cosmos were urging me to tell my story, but with plans and wood instead of words. I thought of Brooke. I thought of how she had been a silent part of that metamorphosis, not as a passive muse, but as a driving force. Her voice haunted me as it faltered and her figure emerged from the shadows of the studio. I called her. Are you available tonight? Why? There's a gallery that wants to show my work. I'd like you to come as a guest. As part of this, there was a long pause on the other side. Are you convinced? I'm starting over, Brooke, and I want to do it with the one who was there when I needed her most. She arrived on time that night. She was dressed in a simple outfit, black pants, an ivory linen blouse, her hair pulled back in a high ponytail, no makeup, tiny earrings, and a steadier expression than before. The room was crowded, brightly lit, glasses clinking, whispers among the surfaces laden with simple shapes. My exhibit was at the end. A loose seat, a hanging light balanced precariously, a wavy glass. All of it evoked the vulnerability of restoration. Brooke stopped before the glass. Her image altered slightly, but not completely. She smiled. This is you, isn't it? What survives after collapse? She turned to me. And what does this stand for? Someone who wants to ask you to stay. Brooke didn't answer with words. She stared at me for a long time, as if deciding something without needing to express it. Beside her, for the first time, I felt that the environment didn't require any more justification. Leo emerged next. With his usual drink, he tapped me on the shoulder. It seems you've returned, not just to the studio, but to you. Thank you for not keeping quiet when I was telling you, I said. Sometimes you catch on late, but you catch on. Clara didn't come. She didn't need to. Her absence was part of what made that evening whole. I walked with Brooke among the works. We were two individuals who had once deceived, sheltered, confronted each other and now tried not to ruin something sincere, something that for the first time was worth building. I didn't hold his hand, I didn't kiss it. I just walked beside him, because now I understood that authenticity is perceived, experienced. The room had closed an hour ago. The visitors had already left, the glasses were empty and the traces of conversation still lingered on the pale walls. But Brooke and I were still there, sitting on one of the side benches, looking at my works as if we were still waiting for them to reveal something to us. She had her hands folded on her knees, moving them gently. Her hair was starting to get messy, and a lock of it fell across her face. At her age, Brooke had the kind of charm that she didn't shout about. It was the kind that came slowly but stayed forever. "I like this one," she said, indicating the wavy glass. "It's like you, misshapen." I laugh. "No, honest glass, it shows what exists, but also what's broken. It doesn't try to hide it." I fell silent. Watching her made me feel a kind of longing, as if it evoked someone I hadn't lost yet. Maybe because I already knew what it was like to lose someone by keeping too quiet. "You know what I thought when I was watching you today?" Brooke said suddenly. "What? That this is the first time I've felt like I'm part of something that matters?" I watched her. Her honey-colored eyes were gleaming, not from tears, but from a deeper emotion, one she didn't know how to place in precise terms. "You were always where it counted, Brooke, it's just that no one stopped to tell you. You did, and so did you." She swallowed, looked at the floor, then back at me. "I don't know when I fell in love with you, but I think it was when you stopped making excuses and started listening to yourself." And I said, moving a little closer, "I think I fell in love when I saw you because I understood that you were free and that if you came back it would be by choice, not obligation." Brooke smiled. Here I am. We stood there, not knowing what else to say. Everything essential had already been said and what wasn't needed, but there was still something I couldn't help. "Brooke," I murmured. "Can I kiss you?" She looked at me with a mix of fondness and surprise. "I thought you'd never ask." We leaned in at the same time. Her mouth tasted soft, like apple and mint. The kiss was slow and unhurried, as if we both knew that there was no need to rush, that the worst was over and that what was coming next was ours. There was no applause or background music, just the sound of our ragged breaths and the serene pulse of two people who had finally chosen each other unconditionally. When we separated, she rested her forehead on my chest. "This does feel real," she whispered. "It is." We moved towards the exit. The lights in the corridor were turning off one by one behind us, and for the first time I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. On the contrary, we were moving towards something. A month after the exhibition, I found myself walking through the Irv with a different way of breathing in. Yesterday was no longer a dense burden hanging from my neck. It was part of being, yes, but like a visible but sealed mark. Brooke and I didn't talk about ours with labels. It wasn't necessary. Some things are not named because they are experienced. And experimenting with her, or rather experiencing knowing that she chose to be close to me every day. It felt like coming home without the need for locks. I had settled permanently into my loft. Brooke would come over often, sometimes with her laptop to work, sitting on the floor, barefoot, with her hair tied up haphazardly. I would watch her and think that nothing I had come up with Clara came close to this, because this was real, imperfect, variable, human. That afternoon, as I prepared something clumsy with what little I had was in the pantry, Brooke emerged from the doorway with a box in her hands. "Are you leaving?" I asked, feigning concern. "No, I'm just returning what isn't mine." She put it on the table. Inside were books she lent me, an old charger, a notebook where we had written down ideas for trips we never took, and this is part of the no-nonsense, remember? I nodded. She opened her bag and took out a folder. "This is yours too." They were clippings of my projects that she had kept. Her notes in the margins, opinions, proposals, even a handwritten critique on one of the pages. "This is good, but you can create something better." I looked at her, half amused and half moved. "You were my first proofreader." I was many things, some of which I'm not proud of, but if there's one thing I want to continue to be, It's part of what you do when you're being yourself. I took her hand. I don't need to pretend anymore, not with you, not with me, not with me. Brooke had a different expression on her face now. It wasn't just affection, it was serenity. That strange serenity that arises when one stops protecting oneself from everything. Ash, a prolonged silence. Are you happy? The question surprised me. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one had ever asked me like that, without fear of the answer. Yes, I am too. There was no oath of eternity, just that gentle certainty that for now everything was where it should be. That night we went for a walk. The sky was clear, the lights of the city vibrated between the trees. We passed by the park where I had last chatted with Clara, and without planning it I stopped. Brooke looked at me without asking. This was where I closed a chapter. I said, "And what is this?" The beginning of many. We stood, young, alive, with visible marks and others that were still healing. And we understood that existence is not about not tripping, but about choosing who you join each time. No trickery, no disguises, just that. A year doesn't seem like much, but in my life it was enough for everything to transform. I moved to another city, not to escape, but to start from a place where nothing reminded me of who I used to be, or of the people who pretended to appreciate me while they drowned me with smiles. I found a studio in the center, not very large, but with high ceilings and windows that face west. Every afternoon the sun filters through the blinds and covers my design schemes with a warm light, as if endorsing what I am creating. Brooke is here too. We don't live together for now, but his toothbrush is in my bathroom and there is a drawer with his belongings in my closet. We see each other without commitment, we choose each other every day. After that show, our relationship became stronger. No because everything was ideal, but because we stopped acting, we didn't fool ourselves, we didn't swear more than we could give. And that was enough. Brooke went back to her studies. She's pursuing a master's degree in strategic design. She has her own path, her own space, and she doesn't need me, but she appreciates me, and that's worth much more. Clara, I heard about her from Leo. The last I heard was that Lucas left her a month after that dinner. He said he wasn't entertaining anymore. Leo told me without much drama. After that, Clara tried to regain her place in the social circle, but it was too late. The silence that had protected her falsehood became her greatest penalty. No one wanted to associate with the person who had allowed her partner to be scammed in public while everyone applauded. She moved, opened an image consulting firm in another city. I don't know if she's doing well, I didn't look for her. She didn't try to contact me either. And I'm glad, not out of resentment, but because there are wounds that shouldn't be reopened to check if they don't hurt anymore. They are accepted, they are buried with respect, and progress is made. Lucas remains the same. Some people don't evolve, sometimes they appear on social media, at events with other women, in meetings with new acquaintances, always smiling, always pretending. I guess his punishment is not having anything genuine and not realizing it. Leo visited us recently. He said he left the group, he got tired of the show, he's dating someone he met at a pottery workshop. He wants different things. I believe him, I appreciate it. My mother called me a week ago. She said I sounded different, calmer, she said. I told her about Brooke, not as if I was introducing her to someone. I spoke to her as if she was already part of everything, because she is. That night Brooke was in my kitchen barefoot making you. I came up behind her and put my arm around her waist. She leaned against my chest as if she already knew I needed that hug. Is everything okay? She asked me. Yes, I just wanted to thank you. Why? Because staying when everyone else left, she smiled without turning around. I was scared too, but sometimes staying it's the only way to know if something is worth it. I held her tighter. A year later, I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I still dream about Clara. Sometimes I wake up and need to remember that all of that is over. But when I look at Brooke, the way he looks at me without demands, the way he leaves himself completely unoccupied, I know that everything that came before was worth it just to get here. I understand now that I didn't lose my way. I was simply being driven to find the right path. One where there's no need to pretend, or to protect myself, or to compete. One where I can be myself, whole, with my wounds and my half-finished projects. And she's right there beside me.